Assalamu alaikum. Myself Fizan Kiani. Today we are going to discuss about human skeleton. So first of all, what is a skeleton? Any hard structure that act as a framework and support the soft tissue and muscles of the body is called skeleton. So as we know, our skeleton is composed of bones and cartilage. First of all, we will discuss about bones. So what is a bone? A bone is a hard structure that considered as organ in human body because a bone is composed of various tissues including bone tissues, cartilage, fibrous tissues, bone and nerve tissues. Functionally, bones support, protect the various organs of body, produce blood cells and store minerals. Bone has elongated hollow central cavity which is called as diaphysis, while the outer edges are called as epiphysis. The outer membrane layer of the bone is called periosteum. This layer protects the inner bone. Under the periosteum, there is a structure called cortical bone. Cortical bone is also known as compact bone. Compact bone is composed of dense, strong, and has resistance to bending. It is mainly consisted of endosteum. Next is spongy bone. It is also called as inner bone mass. It has large spaces between them, hollow structures, a spongy and honeycomb-like appearance. Beside it, it does not add mass. It has greater strength and rigidity. Inside spongy bone, there is a mass of tissue called bone marrow. Bone marrow are of two types, red bone marrow and yellow bone marrow. Cells in bone. There are four types of cells in bone: osteoblast cells, osteocyte cells, osteoclast cells, and osteoprogenitor cells. Each of one has specific function. Divisions of human skeleton. Human skeleton consists of 206 bones, which are divided into axial skeleton and appendicular skeleton. Axial skeleton. Axial skeleton include skull, vertebral column, and rib cage. Next is skull. Skull contains 29 bones, which are also known as head bones. These bones are divided into four divisions: cranial bones, facial bones, ear bones, and hyoid bone. Let's discuss about them one by one. Facial bones. There is a pair of bones that form upper jaw which is called as maxilla. There is a pair of nasal bones. At the region of cheeks, there are a pair of zygomatic bones. Next are L-shaped lacrimal bones. There is a pair of bones present at the region of eyes. Next are palatine bones. These are present under maxilla. There is a single bone that forms lower jaw called as mandible. Now cranial bones. There is left and right pairs of temporal bones. Next is left and right pair of parietal bones. At backside there is a one single occipital bone. At the front of skull there is a single bone called frontal bone that form forehead. Next is vomer. Basically it is a part of facial bone. There is a single bone at the region of nose. Next is inferior nasal conchae. These are also part of facial bones at the region of nose. Next is ethmoidal bone. It is a part of cranial bone at the upper region of nose. There is a single sphenoid bone part of cranial bones. Now ear bones. There are three pair of bones inside the ear. These are malleus, incus, and stapes. Beside it, there is a snail-like bone which is called as cochlea. The last one is hyoid bone. It is present at the bottom of skull.
Assalamualaikum, myself Muhammad Abdullah Yasin. Today we are going to discuss the vertebral column. The vertebral column is also called spine, spinal column or backbone. Composition: it is composed of series of bones called vertebrae, singular is vertebra. Male and female column sizes: it is about 71 cm 28 inches in adult male and about 61 cm 24 inches in adult female. Structure of the vertebral column: the vertebral column in human consists of 33 vertebrae. These vertebrae can be divided into 5 groups. The first is cervical vertebrae, second one is thoracic vertebrae, third one is lumbar vertebrae, fourth one is sacral vertebrae, and fifth is coccyx vertebrae. So starting with the first one, cervical vertebrae. Cervical vertebrae are the vertebrae of neck. The first cervical vertebrae is called atlas and the second cervical vertebrae is called axis. So this is cervical vertebrae. Next is thoracic vertebrae. Thoracic vertebrae are found in the chest region. These vertebrae are the rib carrying vertebrae and having large spinal process. This one is thoracic vertebrae. Third one is lumbar vertebrae. Lumbar vertebrae are present in the abdominal region. This one is lumbar vertebrae. Next is sacral vertebrae. Sacral vertebrae are the 5 fused vertebrae, then forming a sacrum. Sacrum articulate with hip bones to form back of the pelvis. Next is coccyx vertebrae. Coccyx are the 4 fused vertebrae in adults. Sacral vertebrae and coccyx vertebrae are also called pelvic vertebrae. So the detailed view of vertebral column is: this is atlas, this is axis, this one is cervical vertebrae, this one is thoracic vertebrae, this one is lumbar vertebrae, this one is sacral vertebrae, and this one is coccyx. This one is coccyx. So the function of the vertebral column: the first function is support the head. Second, help maintain balance in the upright position. The third function of vertebral column is protection. Vertebral column enclose and protect spinal cord. Fourth one is permit movement, move forward, backward, sideways and rotate. Fifth is absorb shocking during walking. Sixth one is serves as a point of attachment for the ribs, pelvic girdle and muscles of the back and upper limbs. This one is the function of the vertebral column.
Myself, Muhammad Walid Ahmed. So the topic we are going to discuss today is the framework upon which human stands. Of course, we are talking about the skeleton. Our skeleton is differentiated in just 2 parts. Number 1, the axial skeleton, which is present along the axis of the body. And the other one is appendicular skeleton, which include all the appendages. Starting with the axial skeleton, you can see the axial skeleton on the screen, which is in pink color and includes cranium, vertebral column and rib cages. Now that my companion Mr. Faizan has already given a brief introduction to cranium, so I will directly jump onto the rib cages. Everyone is familiar that they are 24 in number, that is 12 pairs. The first 7 are called true ribs. The next 3 are called false ribs, and the last 2 are called floating ribs. The concept is that because the first 7 are attached directly to sternum, so they are referred as true ribs, and all the others have costal cartilage, so they are false, but the last two are not attached in the sternum, so we call them floating ribs. Here our axial skeleton is finished. Now we have appendicular skeleton. There are 80 bones in the axial skeleton, and total there are 206 bones. So the other 126 are appendicular. So there are clavicle, which is surprisingly belongs to appendicular skeleton. The appendicular skeleton. You may see the blue portion in the picture as appendicular skeleton. So it is also classified into upper and lower limbs. First we are going to discuss the upper limbs and the pectoral girdle. The pectoral girdle include the pair of clavicle and scapula, both of which articulate with the sternum. Clavicles are also called as collar bones or the beauty bones, but the scapulas are called shoulder blades. Now the upper limbs mean 4 limbs include number 1 the humerus, number 2 ulna, number 3 the radius, number 4 carpals, which are 2 rows of 8 short bones and forms the wrist. Number 5 metacarpals. Metacarpals are 5 and make the palm. And number 6 phalanges, which are 14 in number. Each finger has 3, but the thumb has 2 phalanges. Pelvic girdle and lower limbs. The pelvic girdle has 3 units of bones. Number 1 ilium, number 2 ischium, number 3 pubis, which are collectively called coxa. So the lower limbs, hind limbs, consist of number 1 femur, which is the strongest bone of the body. Number 2 patella, the kneecap. Number 3 tibia, which is also called shin bone and the longest bone of the body. Number 4th is fibula, and number 5th is dorsals, which are 7 in number and constitute the ankle. Number 6 metatarsals, which are 5 in number. Number 7 phalanges, which have same composition as in hands. We have already discussed about that. Metatarsals and phalanges together make the sole of the foot. Moreover, 2 cavities are present in upper and lower limbs. Number 1 is glenoid cavity, in which spherical head and humerus fits. Number 2 acetabulum, in which femur fits. And that is for today. Very thankful to you guys for your precious time. And that's how we deal with osteoporosis.